Welcome to Tiny Marketing. This is Sarah Noel Block, and this is the podcast that helps B2B service businesses do more with less. Learn lean, actionable, organic marketing strategies you can implement today. No fluff, just powerful growth tactics that work. Ready to scale smarter? Hit that subscribe button and start growing your business with Tiny Marketing. Hello, friends. I am Sarah Noel Block, and this is the Tiny Marketing Show. Today, we are sharing episode 137, which is a little bit different than usual because tech. So, let me give you a little backstory. Last week, I had an interview scheduled with Sweta Govani, who is the founder of Happy Paying Customers. And she is brilliant, but our tech just wouldn't sync up. So her audio was delayed, or my audio was delayed, whatever was happening, we were talking over each other the entire time. So a conversation wasn't possible during that period. So we ended up having a phone conversation, and she told me what she planned on talking about in the interview, and it was brilliant. So I was like, okay, let's pivot Ross Geller style. And why don't you be a guest host this week instead of a guest expert? So this week, Sweta is taking the reins on the Tiny Marketing Show, and she is presenting how you can find the perfect right fit customers when you are either just launching or you're pivoting. So I hope you enjoy this special episode, which is totally different than normal. Enjoy.
Hello. All right. So today we are going to talk about how can I, as a solopreneur, figure out who the right customer is for my business. This is one of the most common questions that I get from my peers who are starting businesses, few years, behind me, or maybe they're actually already a couple of years into their business and they're kind of figuring out, okay, I've been servicing a lot of different clients. What do I do now? How do I really figure out the right fit customer for my business? So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I started my own business 3 years ago, and I've transitioned from honestly getting really bad fit referrals, nonstop, proposals, contracts, sales calls, to getting to a point where I have a product ladder, multiple different offers. I'm mostly selling, honestly, just through my LinkedIn content and through the DMs or emails. And I'm at a point where if I do a sales call, it's going to be because there's very specific questions that someone has, and we're just making a go, no go decision really quickly. And that has been transformative for my business, but also, frankly, for my life, because didn't we all get into business so that we can actually have the luxury of using our time the way that we like? And so this has been a total game changer for me. And I'm excited to share with you all the feedback that I used in order to land here. And hopefully this will help those of you who are a few steps behind me in really figuring out who the right customer is for your audience, for your business. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My business is called Happy Paying Customers. And that's really honestly quite descriptive. This is what I do. I help founders who are at the earliest stages of their business really validate and de-risk their business by actually getting paying customers so that they can figure out if they are building the right business and can get on the right path to a million or other meaningful milestone that they are looking to achieve revenue wise. And then, of course, doing it on their terms for the life perspective. Um, and I specifically partner with founders who are self-identifying themselves as underestimated. That's something that I self-identify as. I get really excited about supporting others who are underestimated and are building, serious multi-million dollar businesses. So this is who I am. My name is Sweta Govani. And just a couple things about me, I'll share about my track record. So you know a little bit about my background is that I started my business after 15 years doing marketing. So that's really what my background is in, mostly for early stage tech startups. And I've helped, many of the businesses that I've worked with across many of them. generate more than $82 million in revenue. This number's changed a little bit, but now I'm at, about 85, 86 or so founders that I've worked with in my business in one way or another through one of my offers to really work on all the things that I talked about at the earliest stages of figuring out their business. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, as just an example for you all to follow along on. And my favorite thing to do in my free time is to travel. And so this is from one of the recent trips with my hubby to Austria. And this is just some of the founders that I have worked with. So like I said, big thing for me was when I started my business, I was introducing myself and really honestly focusing what I thought was focused enough. Um, was as a marketing consultant for early stage tech startups. And I really honestly, started to promote myself and put myself out there, I kept getting all these reactions like, oh, that's interesting. And in practice, I would get referrals from well meaning people that were not quite a good fit for my business. And when I started to go through the sales process, I was sitting there creating custom proposals all the time. And I was going through kind of that normal consulting sales process you go through where you have a call, you try to scope it out, you send them a proposal, and then you follow up and then some percentage of them close, but really you're spending so much time in that sales process, and I was just burnt out by that. It's not why I started my business. I don't have a sales background. I don't really enjoy doing sales, even though I do sales as more of a problem solving type of angle, and I'm really trying to be as helpful in those sales calls rather than being salesy. Even then it just felt like my business, there was no predictability. I didn't know which of those proposals were really going to close. I was just getting exhausted by it. So, if that resonates with you, then you're asking the right question. So much of the answer for that really came for me from really figuring out who's the right customer that I should even be focusing on. And again, like I said, what that resulted in for me was being able to close really great fit deals from just one sales call or no sales call at all. And this number is actually from a while ago. I think my ratio has flipped a lot. I just haven't had time to run the numbers. So I kept this ratio from a while ago. It's honestly now I'm getting more and more deals closed without even ever having to jump on calls. And for me personally, that's a win. That might not be your why. Your why might be something else. And that's really important. It's important for you to figure that out. But what I'm about to share should hopefully work for you no matter what. Another one of my whys, and I'll share this with you all. This is a framework. I did not create this. This is a resource that was created by Nathan Barry, who is the creator, founder of ConvertKit, which is now Kit. It's the email platform that you might be familiar with, has now more features than just email. Um, but this is sort of this ladder of wealth that he had created, and the concept behind this is, for me personally, what really resonated was I was really, one of the things that I was looking for was how do I go from consulting really feeling like it's just a part time job to really turning it into a real business. That was really a big motivation for me is I really wanted to think about how can I start turning this into a real business. And the ladder of wealth, what he really talks about is you start off with, kind of trading time for money. And that's where you have a salaried job. And honestly, that's kind of what consulting felt like for me when I got started. He says the next step is you own your own services business. Personally, I still feel like depending on how you structure it, it still kind of feels like you're trading time for money. And that just didn't work for me. And there are ways to transition it so that it doesn't feel that way. But I still think it felt that way for the way that I was headed. I was doing kind of hourly contracts, project based scopes. And then it gets to a point where you can start productizing your offers. And for me, that was a big unlock. I felt like if I could get really clear on who it is that I'm solving what problem for, that picking that right customer segment, I could start productizing my offers. So they kind of went hand in hand, if I'm being honest. And so that's where I actually transitioned away from doing kind of fractional CMO services, for example, to moving into something that I call the go to market booster, which is basically my high touch kind of coaching strategic advisory service where it's a flat rate subscription that founders sign up for, and we're meeting once a week or once every other week. And it's just still kind of sounds like trading time for money, except that it's not because it's dramatically more, and the founders are not really keeping tabs of hours. And it's just a much better offer. But what's even better that this allowed me to do was to create other offers as well. So that's my flagship kind of, high touch, high ticket offer. Um, but then I also have other offers that are definitely not time for money, where I have a membership community that I'm helping, this kind of specific type of founders that I work with. And then I also have courses that I'm starting to release as well. I just released one officially that I'm starting to promote, that had been soft launching for a while. So I already have people who've bought it and have great reviews from that. And then I'm transitioning now over to other types that are also going to be for other audiences as well. And so when you really think about what enabled me to do that, it honestly just came down to how do I pick that first right customer segment, right? So I wanted to share with you all a specific kind of framework that I use that really helped me, right? So one of the big things that was really helpful for me was thinking about three main aspects of articulating your niche. Now, niche is a term that honestly gets a bad rep. Everybody thinks niching means niching down. I don't mean that. By niche, I just mean someone else should be able to understand very clearly what your business is and when they should be thinking about you. What are the situations in which they should be referring business to you? Or if it's your target audience, they should be able to see themselves and be thinking, oh my God, you're reading my mind. Yes, 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 this is for me, right? So that's what I mean by articulating your niche. And there are kind of three main components that honestly kind of applies to every business in the world, but we'll talk about specifically for a consulting business, how I think about it, right? So one is who. So the who is whom do you solve what problem for? Second is the what, which is what is your solution for that problem and how does it work? And then the third is why you. So why should they pick you over their status quo? And if you listen carefully, there's actually six components to it. Each of these components actually has two components. So under who, you have the whom, which is actually the target audience that you're going after. The second is the problem that you're solving for them. The what is kind of thinking about, okay, well, what is your solution for them? And how does it really work? Right. So those are the two parts, the what and the how. And then the why you has two components again, which is what is kind of your key differentiator? Why are they picking you? But that differentiator doesn't really mean anything on its own if you're not able to articulate what their status quo is, right? So what is it that they're currently using? What have they already tried? And why is your solution better than that? And if you think about it, this is something that can apply to any business in the world. But I'll kind of tell you some of the ways that I thought about it for my business that was really helpful. And I kind of think about it, wait, if you're depending on where you are in your journey, I would say there are kind of three main steps that you can follow, but the way that you apply them would vary. So one would be you discover your niche, right? So you're kind of really thinking about what is that niche that would be a good fit for you. And I'll give you some prompts to think about. Then the second is you kind of try to articulate it. You put it down on paper. And then the third step, which I love, which I think most people skip, is micro testing it, figuring out ways in which you can micro test it. We don't have enough time today to do all of it. So for micro testing, what I'll just leave it with and say is you're finding really small ways that you can actually test it. So if you have outreach that you're doing as your main channel, then that might be one way where you can micro test it by kind of tweaking whom you reach out to or what you say to them, right? Or if you're doing, hanging out in different communities, maybe you have a different offer that you put in front of them, or you try to change the way that you present something at a presentation that you already have coming up, right? You're kind of doing these little things to figure out whether you're on the right path, right? Um, so discovering your niche, I would say for me has a couple of components. And one thing I would say overall that it comes down to, if you're watching the video, you'll see a list of questions that I have here. But I'll just kind of name a couple of things that I think are important. Ultimately, it comes down to we're building a business, we're entrepreneurs because we want to actually build a business We don't want to do a 9 to 5. We want to do it on our own terms. So I like to think of it as anything else in the world. We should always start off with what are my parameters? What is the type of business that I'm trying to build? And what does that actually look like? What is my vision for success for my own business? This could be the number of hours that you're working per week. This could be the type of work that you're doing during those hours. This could be, the type of business that you're building. Like I said, for me, this is where I think it's important. For me, it was really important to not have a business where I'm just trading time for money. That might not be a big deal for you, right? You might not mind doing custom proposals. You might be in an industry where that is the norm and you have to do that, right? So there are different ways to think about it. But for me, those are the things that matter. So really, what mattered to you may not be the same that matters to me, and that's fine. We can have different things that we care about, but it's important to give yourself time to think about what are all the things that you care about. And of course, we have to kind of think about the fact that when we're building our business, we may have to do things a little bit differently. I, of course, had to do that as well when I got started. I took on some clients that maybe weren't a great fit because frankly, I didn't even know they weren't a great fit, or I took on projects that ended up being absolute no-goes for me now. But maybe I didn't know, or maybe, you know what, to be honest, I needed to do what I needed to do when I started my business. So think about kind of what your ultimate vision is and then what you might be able to kind of tolerate for now if you have to. The second part, and this is one of my favorite ways to kind of figure out the right customer segment to go after, is to try to pick one specific dream project. And I say one, you could do maybe three, but I really would encourage you to think of your dream project. Now, if you're just getting started, this could be the dream project that you had at a last company that you worked at. It could be actually the project that you had at your first job out of college and you kind of pivoted a bunch along the way, but you still think fondly of that project. It could be, maybe a project that you didn't even get paid for. Maybe you did something pro bono. Maybe, and nobody knows that. It's about you being able to articulate that dream project and really thinking about, okay, what was going on with that project that was really rewarding for me? What about it felt like it was truly in my zone of genius and happiness, right? Why did I really find joy in that? What were some positive reactions that I received about that project? Kind of surprised me. A really good hint I would say for this is you might have received compliments and you might have thought, I can't believe they think this is something good. It came so naturally to me, right? That's a really good sign. What was the exact work that you did? What were the parts that you loved? What were the parts that you would avoid if you could, right? And then start digging into whom did you work on those projects for, right? Who was the main point of contact? What was the problem you were solving for them? So if you go back to that kind of formula, you're kind of using this as a way to think back to that who part, right? This is the what, right? This is the what. The project is the what. But you kind of use this from your own personal experience to figure out the who. So in my case, by the time I did this exercise, full disclosure, I already have few customers. And I sat down and there was one project that stood out to me. I absolutely adored working with that founder. She was awesome, had a great attitude, really was new to marketing, scared of it, was a product manager, so really, really smart. And there were just all these characteristics about her that started standing out to me. There were all these problem statements that started standing out to me. I would literally be on a call with her, just casually giving her tips, and I could see her light up, right? She was learning, she was applying it, she knew how to get it done. I could just see the transformation. And honestly, it was a tiny project. I think I made maybe $1,000, $1,500, something like that. I've actually forgotten now because it's at the beginning of my business. That became the seed for my entire business. I was helping her validate her idea and I was helping her figure out her early customers. That's literally the entire premise for my business today. I promise it can be so powerful when you really think about that one little project that maybe you didn't even make a lot of money through, but that you feel was truly in your zone of genius and happiness. This is my favorite way to figure out who to focus on and how to really find that early customers. Or if you've actually, like me, already have customers, find what you really want to design more of your business around so that you can have a business that honestly is feeling very, very fulfilling to you. So, this is what I'll leave you with. The best advice I have for you is try to pick that one project and try to really think about, how can I replicate this? How can I get many more of this type of project for this type of customer? That would be the best way to think about it. And if you wanted some tips on kind of how to think about it, a couple of things that you can start mapping out when you think about the who would be thinking about things like, what is the maturity of their business? What stage are they at? You could think about their revenue, the number of employees they have, the whether they've, raised around recently. You could think about the categories. So are they building certain types of businesses? Do they have certain types of mission? Do they have certain types of kind of values that align with you? What about certain types of business models? What about a specific, niche specific characteristics? Like, do they have certain types of certifications? Do they have certain types of go to market motions? Do they, tend to be in a specific subsector within your industry, right? Start to really think about these really tangible ways that you can think about the type of business and the problem statement that that business would be facing, and really think about separately who's going to be that point of contact that you'll be working with to who actually personally has a skin in the game to solve that problem, right? We're not talking about really kind of philosophical issues, right? We're talking about a real person with real problems that they're trying to solve, because solving that is going to make their life better. It's going to make their business better, right? It's going to really be the person who's going to have a reason to hire you and work with you. So that might be things like demographics. That might be because the demographics might be, in my case, right, was because that's what I care about. It's aligned with my mission. But demographics may not matter to you, and that's okay. It might be their title or their seniority level. It could be because the title and seniority actually is tied to the problem you're trying to solve, and they're the person who's in charge of solving that problem, right? It could be that they're part of a specific team or business unit that generally tends to face this type of problems, right? So really think kind of holistically about the type of company and the right person that you will be solving it for. A lot of times I see people think of one or the other, and it just doesn't work. You need both. We need real humans at a business, and you need to get specific about that. And you need to have a real type of business that you're focusing on. Now, this is part of a much larger framework that I use to think about it, with the what and the why, and then micro testing. We don't have time to get into it, but I hope that this is helpful for you in really starting to think about, for the type of projects that you want to be building your business around, that you want to be doing many, many more of, who are the right type of people for that type of work. So really think about all of this holistically together and try to make all those puzzle pieces fit so you can build a business where you're operating in your zone of genius and happiness and making meaningful money doing that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just mention this presentation, this talk, so that I know to accept, and I'll be happy to help if I can.
You love all things tiny marketing, head down to the show notes page and sign up for the wait list to join the Tiny Marketing Club, where you get to work one-on-one with me with trainings, feedback, and pop-up coaching that will help you scale your marketing as a B2B service business. So I'll see you over in the club.